Hi, and welcome to the very first ever live stream for Serverpod, where I'll be doing some live coding. I am Viktor. To be fair, I only had about an hour to prepare for this presentation and the live coding. Founder life is pretty busy, so future live streams may be a little bit more polished, but we wanted to try something out real quick. Please give all the feedback you have so we can make this better in the future, and also feel free to ask questions anytime. Just keep it polite in the chat. And with that, I thought for those of you who haven't heard about Serverpod before, I'll give a quick introduction to what it is, and then we're going to do some live coding on like a real world project that we are actually building here at Serverpod with Serverpod. So let's go. Serverpod is an open source scalable backend for Flutter, written in Dart for the Flutter community. And we made some really cool things in here. The way Serverpod works is that you just add code to your server. You add a method in an endpoint, and we have an analyzer that will look through all your server code, find the methods you have in your endpoints, and then replicate them in the Flutter app. So when you call a method on the server, it's just like calling a local method in your app. We also added a bunch of features in Serverpod. So we have really good logging. We got a built-in cache. Cache is something that's often an afterthought when you build your app. Basically, the most expensive thing you can do when you have a backend is to look up in the database. It's like an order of magnitude more expensive than doing anything else. So if you instead can cache queries that you make often, or say, I built a news app before I started Serverpod, and there you want to show a front page. Basically, everyone gets the same front page. So it doesn't really matter if that is 1 or 2 minutes old. So if you can sort of pre-render or get all the data for that page before you display it, that's much less expensive than doing the hundreds of queries to the database it takes to build a page. That being said, we also have built ORM for Serverpod, which is both type safe, it's Dart first, it has support for all the tricky stuff like database relations and database migrations. Yeah, then we have support for pretty much everything else you would expect from modern framework. You can upload your files straight to S3 or to Google Cloud. We have support for authentication, so you can sign in with Google, Apple, email, all those. You can stream data, so we have a really good interface for real-time communication. Just like when you add a method to Serverpod and return an object, and it just takes care of all the serialization, you can just return a stream, and then in your app you listen to that stream. We take care of all the WebSocket life cycles and all that for you. Then you can schedule tasks. So say you have a user that signs up, you want to send them an email a week from now, you can make a future call. So that's pretty cool. And then we also check, you can check your services that you use, external services or the database, and all that stuff is just checked within Serverpod. And of course, we're working on Serverpod Cloud, which will be the easiest way to deploy your Serverpod with zero configuration. It's currently in a beta. We have a couple of users on there, but we're working really hard to get that out to everyone. That being said, I mean, you can host your Serverpod anywhere you can run Dart, which is, I guess, almost any computer in the world. We also have scripts for uploading your Serverpod to AWS and Google Cloud, and some guides to do that, to get you started. All right. With that, I see that I have a few questions, so we can maybe start there. So let's see here. Do you ever plan on adding a RESTful interface to Serverpod? Well, it's a pretty good question. In fact, we already have. So when you create methods in your Serverpod, under the hood, it's just like a regular REST interface. So it's no real magic happening there. It feels like magic, but it's a well-formed REST API under the hood. Except when you use WebSockets, it has a slightly different interface to make that happen. That being said, we want to make like the documentation part for that much better, and also support more languages in the future, so that you can make it for, say, a JavaScript client or the web, or stuff like that. All right. Rafael, should we just ask questions here? Yes, let's do it. Shoot away. I will be checking this in between, and then I'll do a little bit of live coding there as well, in between the questions, I guess. I'll just scroll up here to see if I have anything else. Well, let the party begin. Let's do it. And we have Tananga. Today's Serverpod 2.7.0 was uploaded with tons of new features. Great work, Serverpod team. Thank you. Yes, we did release a new version today, so good for noticing that. We haven't actually announced it on social media or anything yet, but there are a couple of cool features there. We're actually releasing new features at least once a month, maybe 2 times a month, depending on the size of the feature. So whenever we have anything new, we just push it out to keep it going, and then we'll make a little bit of a bigger announcement when we group together a bigger batch. So I think probably the next big update will be Serverpod 3, and we have some cool stuff for that for sure. And then we have Mukunda. Sorry if I mess up your names here. I feel like we need more documents and guidance using Serverpod for large projects. Yes, this is actually something we are working on. We're currently building, we have a new developer relations guy called Damien, and he's building a full course for learning to work with Serverpod, and there will be some more large-scale projects, like real-world stuff in there. So that would be very, very cool. We also just, together with this update, updated our documentation. So we have a new Get Started guide that guides you through like all the process of building your first app, working with endpoints, and the database. And it's a pretty cool recipe app that uses ChatGPT as well. All right. Okay. Well, there's a lot of questions here. See if I get to the live coding at all. So are there any plans to support more storage providers, not only Amazon and GCP? Well, we actually already support one more, and that's storing straight to the database, which is great for development, so you don't have to like set anything up when you work in development mode. So that's sort of the default one right now. That being said, the interface for building your own is not that hard. I'm not sure which one you would like to have, but most of them are compatible with Amazon. They have sort of the standard interface for how that works. Okay, and then we have Tristan. How far along are you with Serverpod Cloud? Been waiting for ages. Yes, there's some stuff in there that turned out to be way harder than we thought it would be, so that's why it's taking a little bit longer. Turns out the building basically an infrastructure where you can host thousands of apps that can be like infinitely big is quite tricky. But we have found like solutions to all the scalability problems, so we're implementing those. And there are a few more things that we need to get in there to get it out, but it's we have our first like 20 people on board already, but we're slowly adding more every week. and eventually we'll be able to just open up for everyone. What we need to know is like super safe, secure, and scales to like any size, so that your app is actually working for sure. All right, can you please share videos soon, how to deploy to AWS, Google Cloud, and also to another servers, like using Docker? So this is mostly around deployment. I think what we're going to do, I mean, we're focusing mostly on getting Serverpod Cloud out, because deploying to Serverpod Cloud will cost about as much as these services, and you can do it via Serverpod Cloud deploy, and we take care of everything else. So that's where we're like putting our biggest effort. That being said, I mean, we do have pretty solid guides for getting it up on other places, but sorry, no videos. I'm not sure if that will happen or not. Maybe someone in the community want to do it. Let's see. Are there any plans to make Serverpod's database support more flexible, allowing developers to use other databases of their choice? Some vague plans. I mean, we are a team now of 9 full-time developers, so we're a small team, but still, you know, a real team. It's quite challenging to prioritize everything, so it's something that we want to do for the future, but it's also not the highest priority, because like Postgres is the most commonly used database for backends. It's very proven, it scales well. It has a lot of benefits using the Postgres. I think if we do something else, first probably would be SQLite, because then we could potentially do that on the client side and have it sync up automatically. That's something we really want to build. It's a little bit further out though, but right. Okay, next question here. Can I know when you will start your cloud hosting service? Well, sign up to our waiting list. If you go to our documentation page, there's a link at the top. So that way you will get like access the fastest once it is out, or maybe even before that. Okay, so Jasper integration, official docs integrated within server project, which is a little bit strange. When adding server, you add dependency to client to server, and hot reload stops working. Okay, and there's a second part of this. Maybe Jasper should be a separate project when integrating with Serverpod. Well, so we are not the ones who really made that integration, so it may be a question for the author of Jasper, but we definitely have an intention of making that work, and also probably in the future sometime provide hot reload for Serverpod as well. That would be really nice. All right, if it's already using a RESTful API under the hood, where's the documentation of using it? Yeah, that's a great question. Again, it's just been a matter of priorities, and probably something we should prioritize. We really want to generate the documentation for the whole API that you have. So it's something that will be coming, but I can't give a date yet. Do you have any plan to add protobuf instead of JSON over HTTP? Because protocol buffers are much faster for when compared to JSON. Yes, you are right about that. I'm not sure we will use protobuf necessarily. It's a little bit tricky to keep up to date, but something along those lines would be a really fun project to implement, to have like a more efficient system to transfer data than JSON. I would like to do that, but can't give a timeline. There are like so many things that are higher up on the priorities to make everything work, but it would be a very cool feature. Here is another question. So I don't think there's any documentation, but can you spy with some proxy? I'm not exactly sure what spy means, but you use HTTPS connecting to your Serverpod typically, so should be no man in the middle attacks possible. All right, you should do more lives like this. People have a lot of questions and interest in Serverpod, or at least make a Discord or Matrix server. Well, yes, we have been talking about the Discord thing. I mean, it's hard enough for us to keep up on GitHub, so we have like the support on GitHub, which has some benefits in terms of we can mark questions as answered, and also it just has a little bit more structure. I understand it doesn't have that real-time feeling, but also if we spend too much time just responding in real time, we will get no work done, which is also, I think, a priority for everyone here. So maybe in the future we may move there, but for now we do it on GitHub. But more lives like this for sure. I mean, it seems like you do have a lot of questions, so we may keep this going like more often for sure. Okay, there's another question here about SQLite support. I think I answered that. And that's just a shout out. Thank you for this great tool. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, can you tell more about new experimental feature to see UUID instead of integers as primary key? Will we see that someday as default? Great question. Yes, you will pretty soon. So we are working on a new authentication module that is pretty far along. It's maybe a couple of weeks out until we can release it, and that relies on the new UUID. So one problem with just using integers that are like numbered in a sequence is that you can sort of guess user IDs or IDs for different objects. So you'll be able to just add a UUID instead as the primary key. This feature, you can enable it. If you look in the documentation for experimental features, you'll find it there. So it is pretty stable, so feel free to try it out, but it will be out with our new authentication module. Maybe login and register should be implemented OOTB with additional user team support. OOTB, I am not sure what that means. User team support is, I think maybe we'll add something like that to the user module in the future. It could be an idea, but we are focusing. The problem with these kind of features is that like everyone wants them in a little bit different way. So many will still rebuild it themselves anyway, rather than like try to shoehorn it. So we try to make the new authentication as sort of generally applicable as possible, so you can build stuff like two-factor authentication easily and sign in with different things connected to your extended user info or stuff you want to associate with a new user. So that's sort of the focus we have there. All right. Okay, can you add some hack to add Serverpod to Flutter exist project? So I guess if you have an existing project and you want to add Serverpod to it, yeah, we should definitely make a guide for that, because It's actually not that hard. So what you can do, if you create a new Serverpod project, we may address this in the future, make that maybe a little bit smoother. But if you create a new Serverpod project, you can just remove the Flutter app, and then you drop your existing Flutter app there, and you just import the the client package in your Flutter app, and then you can access the Serverpod. It's like no more magic than that. So it's actually pretty easy to do, but there should definitely be like a guide on how to do it, because it's something many people ask for. All right. How shall I be a developer evangelist with your Serverpod team? I'm a final year student from India. Yeah, so we're actually hiring a few more people for Serverpod. There could be an opening for another evangelist. But it's, I think for that position, you need to have a pretty strong foundation in the sort of Flutter community already, and have like proven YouTube content, shown that you can write really good guides, stuff like that. Yeah, if you already have that, let us know for sure. As a suggestion, feature base might be a good candidate for people to vote for features, but also share your roadmap and current advances. All right, cool. So just a note, you can actually find our roadmap on GitHub. It's pretty detailed for the framework, so you can see exactly what we're working on, what we plan for the future, and what we are building right now. So, but yeah, typically you can vote for the features on GitHub too. We have like everything collected there. You can just give a thumbs up. I haven't had a look at FeatureBase, so it may be a much better system potentially. So we'll definitely have a look. Let's see here. What's inside the new update from today? The docs has chanted a bit. So yes, we have, well, maybe I can show you. If I switch to the other screen here, then maybe easier. Just give me a second. All right. So if we need to increase the screen size a little bit here, and then I can share my screen. All right, so here we go. If you go to pub.dev and search for Serverpod, there is a changelog here, so you can see exactly all the changes we have made. I'm going to hide your comment there so we can actually see what's on here. Let me up the size a little bit. Oops. Did I screw something up? I hope not. No. There we go. So these are our new features. Yeah, there's some, we added support for, we've been working on that UUID for default values. You'll also be able to use version 7 of UUID. So the difference between the versions there is that I think the standard is sort of version 4. In version 7 you can also make sure they are sequential, not like enumerated, right, but they're in sequence, which can be beneficial if you have a large number of them and use an index to search in the database. We also added support for do not generate annotation for endpoint methods. So basically before we had a possibility to exclude endpoints from being generated in the server, but you can also ignore just single methods. And Right, we did an update to the execution of future calls. So before, they used to be sequential. So if you made a future call, it would wait until it was completed and then would start on the next future call. Now you can choose to have them execute like independently of each other. So it depends a little bit on your use case. Some people used it to sort of batch a lot of stuff in the future, and then they would not all finish until the next one started executing. So that may be a much better version of that. And we also added support for using strings to represent user IDs in the authentication. And this is to support our new authentication module, where you will be able to use UUID, or you can basically plug in any type of objects there now. All right, and then there is just some random bug fixes, I think. So I hope that answered your question. What about primary type in streaming? Not exactly sure what you are referring to here, but when you stream data, you return a stream, but you can also make it typed. So maybe that's what you're asking for. We have been experimenting with getting like inheritance work, which would be really nice in the bundle files. We ran into some, I mean, it technically works. It is on an experimental feature you can enable. The problem is that if you inherit objects, you'll need to pass information together with that object about what type it is. So to make that work, we need to change the interface for, like, it will basically break backwards compatibility with how we send objects today where we know the exact type. So maybe when we build something like protobuf, we can get that in a very smooth way. So something for the future. I think this is referring to the question about creating a existing project. Or will the ID be removed, or will you have them both? Is this referring to maybe the ID of UUID? If it is, then I would say you need to do some sort of manual migration to switch to the new UUID. But there will be a guide for the user authentication, how to do that switch. And you will also be able to run the old model so in parallel. So we won't break anything. We're just adding stuff. And today I learned OOTB is out of the box. Thank you. All right. Are there any plans to create Android Studio extension for .spy files, just like in VS Code? There are huge amounts of Flutter devs on Android Studio. Yeah, this we should probably do. It's probably quite easy because it's sort of encapsulated in the, we have a language server, like similar to the Dart Analyzer. It uses the same interface. So that can basically plug into any editor. We should just get that done. Thank you for bringing that up. All right. Thanks for the awesome work so far. 2 apps in production, and our team is busy migrating our legacy apps. Well, that's great to hear. And feel free to ping us if you want us to showcase them. We would love to do that. All right, and next one is, yeah, default documentation is kind of awkward. With Serverpod, definitely something that needs either more refinement or better documentation. Well, I can say that both are forthcoming pretty soon. We know there are some limitations there. When I started Serverpod like 3 years ago, I probably hacked that together in a weekend. So I mean, for what it is, it works really well. But yeah, there are some great refinements we can do. Let's put it that way. The generated Flutter app is useless, should be deprecated. Are you talking about like the initial example? Well, I mean, the idea is just to give you an idea of how to set things up. So it works out of the box. You have a starting point. It's not meant to be a real app or anything like that. All right, are you going to use YAML files for models in future as well? Don't you think it's better to move with annotation-based approach like Spring Boot? It gives you much more flexibility. So this is a great question. I think we may support both in the future, possibly, but the YAML files have some huge benefits. It's easy to bundle more information when it comes to the database and allows us to have more flexibility when we generate the code. Also, it forces you to separate the logic from the models, which will make it possible to generate the model files, not just for Dart, but for other languages. So we wanted to keep that sort of language agnostic. It could be a problem otherwise, right? If you have Dart files and we want to compile JavaScript, it can be pretty hard to extract that in a good way. And I mean, the logic for sure wouldn't be passed on to the new model file. And yeah, it would be just a poor user experience, we think. But it could be cool if you use like just Dart and Flutter all the way to have support for annotation. So it's definitely not off the table. Right. Why did you stop project-based series? Shouldn't you guys create advanced projects for demos, like creating some real-world apps, clone, like Supabase do? This would bring Serverpod up front. Okay, real-world apps clones, I guess. Yeah. Well, that's why I started this live stream, I guess. Haven't really gotten to coding. Hope you still feel like the Q&A is interesting. So we'll see. Maybe I'll save the coding for next week. Depends on how many questions we get here. But we are definitely working on this. And there also, we just learned of another open source project built with Serverpod. So we may try them out, maybe bring them up on the live stream. I mean, if you build something with Serverpod and want to showcase it here, I mean, that would be awesome too. We would love to do that. So get in touch if you have anything like that. And we got like a positive feedback. The AI assistant in the documentation is awesome, helps a lot. Yes, so it's a little bit invisible, I guess, but in the corner of the documentation there is a, well, let me show you quickly if I share my screen here. All right, so this is the documentation. Let me just up the scale a little bit. Oh, wrong window. There. So right here in the corner you have the Ask AI. So you can basically just ask any question to the documentation, like how do I create a project? But it's obviously a little bit smarter than just giving you the startup guide. It will search not just the documentation, but also issues on GitHub and discussions and pull all that information together for you. So you'll get like a quick answer here, but it can be really helpful to find a little bit more things that are hard to find in the documentation. There's a lot of stuff in the documentation, but it can be hard to find. So this is a great tool. So thanks for bringing that up. And by that, I can also showcase our new documentation page. So basically, we created a getting started guide here. So it's 4 steps: creating your endpoint methods, and you build like a I don't know if there's a, yeah, it's not that pretty, the app, but it's pretty cool. So you enter some ingredients you may have in your fridge, and it comes up with a recipe. So it uses I think Gemini behind the scenes to do that, and then it showcases how to let's see, maybe connect it to the database and store the files so that you can see the old files that you, or like old queries that you've asked it, and save all the recipes in the database. So it's just going through the whole guide will take you less than 30 minutes and give you a good idea of how to work with Serverpod. So we're really working hard on making the documentation better, both for like the AI search and everything. Next one is, when are we getting Open API support? Yes, I think we're probably not going to do Open API necessarily, but I think what we will do instead something similar. The problem is that we have a lot of features in Serverpod that are not supported by Open API. So Open API is basically a description of your API, but in Serverpod we also have stuff like throwing exceptions that you can serialize and rethrow in your client. You can send Dart records, and how do you represent that in Open API? Not entirely clear. So for that reason, we're probably going to do code generation for multiple languages, and also generate like documentation for how the API works. I think that may be a smarter way to do it. Regarding database, do we support geospatial data, like when I want to create an Uber app, I want to calculate based on data points? So is that upcoming? There is a request for comments up on GitHub. So typically when we have features like that, we will create a request for comments and see how many people upvote it. So if you like it, want it, upvote it. That being said, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. You can send, it's called like unsafe queries in Serverpod. So you can just create any type of SQL query, and that will work. And so you can do that manually for just those queries that are working with a spatial data. So nothing stopping you from doing it. You can have it work within the database migration system and all that as well. So yes. Right, after some time, migration folder will contain a lot of files inside. Are there tools to combine multiple migrations together and keep it cleaner? Yes, you can do that. What you can do is, what I think is the probably smartest way to do this is to, when you develop, you create a lot of migrations. But when you deploy, you typically you should have a migration for each deploy. So what you can do is just tag it. So there's a maybe -t parameter you can pass to create migration. So for you that haven't worked with this, database migrations is basically taking the schema of your database that describes all the tables and moving that from one state to the next. And whenever you add new database tables or things in the tables, you need to create a database migrations, a database migration. And when you develop, you may want to add that like continuously, but then you have like a finished version. You probably don't want to have like 100 migrations that get applied. I mean, it will still work. There's nothing wrong with doing it necessarily. But what you can do is just remove the last ones, and then you just create a new migration. And I will take it from the last migration and create a new one. So that's probably the easiest way to do it. And then you can set a tag for it so that you can see which one you have sort of made checkpoints for. That is how I would do it. Are you gonna implement seeders like Laravel? I am not exactly sure how Laravel has done it, but when you build tests, it's pretty easy to seed your database. I had planned to do that in the live coding, but well, maybe next time I'll focus a little bit more on the live coding and a bit less on the questions. But you just do a set of database queries basically to set up your database before the test, then you run the test, and then you can check the stuff. But I'll check out the seeders on Laravel, could be good stuff. Right, what roles as a fresher I can be in Serverpod? I wish I could be a part of Serverpod team. Yeah, we get a lot of inquiries here. The problem with working on Serverpod, you need a little bit of experience. So right now, the least experienced person we have on the team had like 7 years prior to joining Serverpod, and everyone has a degree in computer science. So it's a little bit, working on the Serverpod framework is a bit harder than just working on an app. It's quite different. So yeah, I would say at least for now, we don't really have the resources to bring on board junior developers. I wish we could, because I mean there's so much good energy, but maybe in the future we'll be able to do that when we're a little bit bigger. Now we really, it's hard to do without senior developers, unfortunately. It's a lot to dig into. You need to be familiar with building like scalable things, testing, and all that stuff. Okay, Serverpod positions itself as a full stack backend. Do you see Serverpod could support a plugin architecture for other languages like WASM, or is the Dart integration a long-term core philosophy? Well, I think for the backend part, what we envision is like, I think maybe we can support more languages on the server side in the future. You never know what happens, right? But the core is pretty bound to Dart in its current form. But for the clients, as we talked about before, we can definitely support more languages there quite easy. And then we can probably add a lot more sort of logic into the YAML files or the specification. Right now it's just models you define there, but there could be other things that we can generate code from, so you more configure your server rather than programming it, and then the Dart part gets sort of smaller. So that could be a way to go in the future. I was creating an Instagram detailed clone, but got stuck in inheritance part for post like image, text, video, but now I think I should resume. I think you should too. And if you get stuck, post on in our GitHub discussions, and hopefully, I mean, we check that every day. Hopefully you'll get an answer pretty quick there. Open source project with Serverpod, where can I contribute? That's a great question. If you go to GitHub again and you look at issues, you can search for good first issue. So that could be a great start. We already have like quite a few from the community that have contributed features. It's like some really big ones, like the UUID contributed by the community. Actually, the way serialization works also, and the code generation is contributed, and yeah, a lot of other stuff. So check the get started features before you jump into a bigger one, because it can be a little bit challenging if you are not experienced, because we require tests for everything, and basically the stuff you build need to be maintainable. But there are some easier things to do there as well. So and I mean, if you're experienced, feel free to dig into the harder stuff too, by all means. Well, Serverpod is awesome, but need more work on docs and community. Well, we are working on it, rest assured. You should collaborate with Flutter team in their ongoing series of building agentic app with Flutter. Using Serverpod would be a great idea. Don't forget that Craig is a fan of Serverpod. Yes, we should probably try to do that. I'll reach out to them. Especially as we are building a vector database for Serverpod, so that will definitely make that much more viable, and like make Serverpod super great for serving your backend with AI. What is the tech stack of your document website made of? We are actually not using Serverpod for that yet, or Dart. Maybe in the future. There's some pretty cool work by Matt Carroll. If you have seen Static Shock, maybe if you want to do Dart, that's the way to go. It was not out when we started doing the Serverpod documentation, so we used a system called Docusaurus, which just takes markdown files, and it has a lot of cool features and plugins that we're using. So that being said, we may switch that out in the future, but for now it works and it looks decent. I am dreaming of local database support that could synchronize seamlessly with Serverpod. Otherwise, syncing various database is quite tedious. Yes, I would love this too. It's a pretty big feature to build, but we are hiring a few more developers, so maybe some of them will start working on this. It's definitely something we're looking at for the future. There is a new project trying to mimic Spring Boot for Dart called Vaden. I've been following it too. Maybe they might have some good ideas for future Serverpod features. Yes, I think I had just a quick look, yeah, we'll see in the future, maybe. And all right, these days offline apps are like very common. Shouldn't you guys support use of PowerSync or bricks for offline? Yeah, maybe. I haven't had a deep dive into PowerSync. I hear good things, so it's probably something we can either use or take inspiration for. And I think we are going to do a more sort of decoupled modules for Serverpod that are not necessarily like Serverpod core, but sort of plug-ons or modules. So that can be a great one to get people started quickly with that. And then when we have the resources, we can build our own version of PowerSync, like built into the core of Serverpod, perhaps. A good idea is creating a Serverpod showcase page with projects in production that are using Serverpod. Would bring even more credibility to the projects. Yes, great idea. And we are actually about to start working on our new webpage for Serverpod 3. So that is something that will be on there for sure. There are quite a few apps to showcase now, so that is exciting. Will using timescale DB on top of Serverpod PostgreSDB cause issues in long run with auto generation? No, you can use any custom Postgres features safely. You can exclude tables from the migrations if you need to do that. So that may be the way to go there. And then you may not be able to use the Serverpod models for it, but you can use any like table features. Let's not talk about years of experience. I feel old. Well, that makes two of us. When do you make Insights open source? Yeah, Insights is lagging behind a little bit, but definitely something we are going to brush up. We may do it open source as well. It's not like the code is not like super nice, not really on the same quality level than the rest of Serverpod. So we may want to fix that up before we let people in to help us out. But yes. Do you have plans with Jasper? Maybe. I mean, Jasper works with Serverpod, but we'll see. We are actually, so Jasper is a way to build your website in Dart. I haven't played around with it too much myself, but it's pretty cool what I have built. So we'll definitely make sure it works with Serverpod. That being said, we're also building our own low-level replacement for Shelf. Dart Shelf is Google's web server, but it's a little bit dated and it's not supported by Google. So we have actually spent 6 months at least building a new version of it that is very close to be released. We just need to make sure the documentation is up to snuff. But it's it will be pretty similar to Shelf, but we like really polished it up so you can work with like type safe headers in HTTP, and yeah, there's a lot of features that we just fixed. The problem with Shelf is that it was written in the infancy of Dart, so it doesn't use any of the new Dart features, and it's very lots of dynamic stuff in there that's not great for performance and not great for the developer experience. So that is something to look out for in the next couple of weeks, actually. As a full-stack developer, can we expect Serverpod to become a strong alternative to Node.js-based stacks like MERN in terms of performance, ecosystem, and scalability for long-term company adoption? Yes, definitely. I mean, we haven't really worked much on the promotion of Serverpod. We've been pretty focused on getting everything to be like really good and working. And now we are there, so we spend a lot more time pushing it out, and that's why we started doing these live streams, and we're working on getting the documentation. We're going to build lots of guides, a full course for doing Serverpod. So yes, I think we will be like Serverpod will become the default backend for Flutter developers, like Node.js may be for React. Are you guys planning to use NoSQL or graph database in future, as many of developers hate SQL joins? So the good news here is that we made joins super easy with Serverpod if you do use our relations. So that's very little code to do your joins, and it just works. That being said, I think that would be super cool, and Postgres actually have really good document database or NoSQL extension that may even be as good or better as MongoDB. So having support for that would be super cool, and also for like the real-time sync and everything. So something we want to do in the future. Is it possible to generate Swagger-like documentation of my endpoints automatically? Well, I answered this a little bit a while ago. Not yet, but we will be getting there. Is multi-database connectivity to a single server a feasible option, perhaps in future release? So it actually already happens under the hood. So Serverpod uses, when it talks with the database, it uses a pool of sort of features to do that. So you're not like blocked by a single query. They can happen many at once. So I don't know if that answers your question, but yes, I think we already do that. AI assistant of the site is cool feature, but now it's not answer to the key question with actual version of Serverpod. Do you have a plan to make AI assistant actual for the last version? Well, it updates like once a day, so I guess you may have to wait until tomorrow, but then it should be up to date, hopefully. All right, I do not even know about Insights. I'll take a little look later. Yeah, have a look. It's basically an app you can download to inspect your server, and it's like a log viewer for Serverpod. That's actually pretty neat. When can I start using Eureka service discovery with Serverpod? Perhaps I could answer that if I knew what it was. So sorry. Where do I get Serverpod's merch? Want to get that t-shirt too? Well, I think you need to at some point meet us in real life. So we'll be at most of the Flutter conferences around the world this year. So if you're going to any of those, find us and we'll find you a t-shirt. How about that? Oh, this is a little bit of a personal question, I guess. Viktor, are you still coding or only on the administration part? The bad part of being a CEO is that you code less. Well, I definitely code a lot less than I used to do. I mean, I wrote the first version of Serverpod single-handedly, and now there's so many other things you sort of need to keep in motion, both managing a company, raising money, all that stuff. But I'm in a actually pretty good place now, so I do have some time to code. I'm working more on the building demos with Serverpod part right now, so expect more stuff there to come. Is there any plans to increase speed in the generate command? Well, I have got some good news for you there. I know it takes a few seconds to run Serverpod generate, but what the sort of slow part of that is that we start a Dart analyzer. When the analyzer is running, it's actually very fast. So you can add --watch to Serverpod generate, and then it will continuously listen for changes and regenerate your code very fast. So worth trying out that. What's the long-term vision for Serverpod, and is there any commitment or backing to give users confidence in ongoing development, say over the next 2, 5, or even 10 years? Yes, so I can answer the first one for the 2 years. We do have money in the bank for the next 2 years because we just raised our seed round. So you can be very sure we'll be around for another 2 years. 5 years, I mean, we are very close to releasing Serverpod Cloud. That will be our sort of paid offering and how we're going to finance our growth going forward. So in these 2 years, the goal is to be basically have a sustainable business and maybe also raise another Series A round. We'll see. Why aren't Insights available for Linux? It's weird. Yes. Well, we did some experiments there, but I think there were some issues. We just haven't spent the time, and no one in the office has a Linux machine. So, I mean, this is definitely on the argument of making it open source so people can do that. Yes, it's probably a pretty easy fix. Does Insights logging can be used to log on the client? Currently, no, but that's actually a pretty cool feature that we have been thinking. so you can sort of unify the logs both on the client and the server. That would be pretty sweet and probably not too hard to implement. So that may be a cool feature to add. It could also be the same for like analytics. So you basically can use the same user and just under the hood. Could be a new Serverpod module to do that. That would be it's a pretty cool idea. Any plans to follow MVC, model view controller layer, like separate for database layer, endpoint separate layer, and model DDO layer? I mean, it's up to you to how you structure your server. So you can definitely do that. You can build it any way you like in Serverpod. We used to have it so that you needed to have your endpoints in a specific directory and the models in a specific directory for it to work. Now you can place your models anywhere in your Serverpod project, and the models can be anywhere. So you can structure it any way you like. No problemo. I'm not an experienced backend developer. Currently, it's hosted in other cloud provider. When Serverpod Cloud is ready, is it possible to migrate the data, or should I start from zero? Obviously, we will make it easy to do migrations to Serverpod Cloud. You will be able to access the database, and then you can just do all the necessary commands to do that. I'm sure we'll provide you with a guide. No problem. Should not be hard. All right. Yeah, you focus on creating awesome projects. Rest will be taken care by your team. Yes, I'm so proud and happy of the team. They really pick up the slack when I when I have too much stuff to do. So that's they do a great job, I have to say, and can just judge them by the features they pushed out and the quality of the updates. Yeah, it's quite an amazing journey. Makes my job as a CEO easy. Okay, Netflix Eureka is a service registration and discovery, a service discovery tool specifically designed for microservices architectures that enables dynamic registration and discovery of services without hard coding configurations. It acts as a registry where microservices can register themselves and locate other services in the system. Eureka improves fault tolerance and detecting failed instances and facilitates client-side load balancing for efficient traffic distribution. Okay, I'm guessing you can run this service in parallel to Serverpod. Serverpod is quite flexible. It just listens to a port and you can connect to it. That's being said, in Serverpod Cloud, we sort of done all that stuff. We're using like checks to check everything is up and working and restarting stuff that breaks and stuff like that. So it will kind of be built in if you use Serverpod Cloud. You should keep your mustache as well. Okay, well, maybe I have a little bit of a mustache. Maybe it's the lighting that makes it hard to see. I'll save it a little bit longer for next time. How about it? All right. Did he just say no one in their offices uses Linux? I'm sorry, what? Well, I guess we are like Apple fanboys, all of us, except one who used to work on a Windows machine. But right, would have been good with a Linux fan as well. I mean, we test everything on Linux except the insights, so it definitely runs on Linux. Okay, I'm checking the questions here. There are, I'm almost caught up. Okay, let's check this one, see if I can unscramble what it actually says. Consider database layer as separate them. How do we get the session in querying database? How do get inject object for database layer class in service layer and in same endpoint layer dependency injection? Sorry, I'm not quite sure I got this question. Maybe I'm getting a little bit slow here. All right, so we have one more here. Thanks for holding this live session. Great to see you. Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for attending. I think we're going to keep it to this hour today, and it's a promise that I will do some live coding next time. And the thing I'll give it away here right now, what we're building will be an app for handling conferences. We're going to be hosting a conference called Full Stack Flutter this fall, probably in October, so we're about to set that up, and it was a real pain to do all that work. We used Google Docs and patched together a bunch of different solutions to get a call for papers in and do all the administration. So we're going to build more of an app for it. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll have more of a look at that next time, and have a great rest of your day or evening, depending on where in the world you are, and happy coding.